is Eric Willis. I'm with the property acquisition section. We're here on the request to abandon portions of Denton Road and Hampden Lane in proximity to the Edgemoor Club swim and tennis club. And so at this point, I think I'll turn things over to our hearing examiner, or introduce our hearing examiner, Mr. Joe Stamana, and he can pick it up from there.
All right. Well, greetings and good afternoon to all of you. It is now 2:03 p.m. on the 8th of December, 2021. My name is Joe Stamana, and we are conducting this hearing virtually via Zoom. We're here for a public hearing on abandonment petition AB 778 to consider an application received from Edgemoor Club, Inc. to abandon portions of the public rights-of-way known as Denton Road and Hampden Lane in the Edgemoor neighborhood of Bethesda. My name is Joe Stamana, and I am the County Executive's designated hearing officer with the county's Department of Transportation. This right-of-way abandonment hearing is being conducted pursuant to Section 49-62F of the Montgomery County Code. My role in the abandonment process is to receive testimony concerning the abandonment request and then write a report and recommendation to the county executive concerning the applicant's petition for abandonment. In order to do this, I will be considering statements made at the hearing, written comments received within the comment period, and comments will be received up until December 22nd, 2021 at 5 p.m., and documents submitted to support or explain a position. My report and recommendation will then be forwarded to the county executive for consideration, and the executive will then forward the report to the county with the county executive's recommendation to the county council. It is the county council that will decide whether to grant or deny the applicant's petition for abandonment. For those who wish to submit written comments, please submit them to Eric Willis at the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, 100 Edison Park Drive, 4th floor, Gaithersburg, Maryland, 20878, or email them to eric.montgomerykountymd.gov by December 22nd, 2021. There are a few ground rules that we must cover before Mr. Willis introduces the abandonment exhibits into the record. First, please turn off or silence your cell phones. Second, as an issue of decorum, all participants must be given their due consideration. Those seeking to offer comment following the close of petitioner's case for abandonment are asked to be mindful of time and to limit their comments to relevant matters. Such comments should be confined to less than 3 minutes. Given we have a stand-up group here, so I don't think we'll need any of the following comments, but I'm going to read it out anyway. If an interruption occurs, I will give that individual their first warning. If there is a second interruption, I will give that individual a second warning, and they will be muted. If that same individual receives a third warning, that person will be removed from the call. And if there are several people making interruptions, I may have to close the hearing. Following Mr. Willis's introduction, the applicant will submit its case for why it believes the right-of-way should be abandoned. After the applicant has completed its case, those who have registered to speak will be afforded the opportunity to make relevant comments. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Eric to start with the exhibits.
Thank you, Mr. Tamana. Again, my name is Eric Willis. I'm the chief of the property acquisition section with MCDOT. My section is responsible for administering the request to abandon public right-of-way. As Mr. Tamana mentioned, the process is governed by the County Code, Article 49, Section 6. The standard for abandonment is that the county council may abandon a public right-of-way if it finds that the right-of-way is no longer needed for present or anticipated future public use, or two, the abandonment is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents near the right-of-way to be abandoned. In this case, the applicant, which is Edgemore Club Incorporated, is seeking the abandonment of portions of previously dedicated rights-of-way known as Denton Road and Hampden Lane. As I understand it, the request is being brought in order to clear up boundary issues between the applicant's property and the subject rights-of-way. There are a number of representatives here for the applicant, and so I'm sure they'll be making a presentation shortly that will address those issues and set forth their case for why they believe their subject rights-of-way should be abandoned. This hearing is being conducted in accordance, again, with the county code, and as part of that administrative process, my section has provided the requisite notices to other public agencies, abutting property owners, and the public at large. As part of that process, we've collected a number of exhibits, and I'll now introduce those exhibits into the record. If TR, you can pull those up and go through those exhibits. So Exhibit A is the applicant's letter addressed. It's from Patricia Harris at the law firm of Lurch Early, representing Edgemore Club, addressed to our DOT director, Mr. Chris Conklin. It's a letter setting forth the rationale behind the request, as well as attaching various exhibits, which include a sketch and description of the subject rights-of-way to be abandoned. There's historical subdivision plats showing how the sort of relationship between the rights-of-way and the applicant's property has evolved over the course of several decades, frankly. There's some site photos, area maps as we're seeing right now, and then again, several site photos. Okay. Exhibit B is the executive order that authorized today's public hearing. Exhibit C is the proof of publication in the Washington Times advertisement. This advertisement ran on November 26th and December 3rd, two successive weeks, setting forth notice to the public of this hearing. Exhibit D is a sign that was posted right at the corner of Hampden and Denton Lane. It provides provides notice of the hearing, the date of it, and provides a QR code that can be scanned for registration for the hearing. Exhibit, I believe we're on E. Exhibit E is my letter to the president of the Edgemore Citizens Association providing notice of the hearing. The second page of this letter actually attaches a formal notice with that same QR code attached to it. Exhibit F, I believe, is a memo from the development review team in the director's office at DOT, recommending approval of the requested abandonment subject to certain conditions. Those conditions including that should the site ever be developed, the applicant will dedicate to public right-of-way the full width of the street frontages along Denton and Hampden Lane per the complete street guidelines and other standards acceptable to DOT. I think it was also subject to, let me go back one. I think that existing sidewalk will remain within the right-of-way and a couple of other conditions related to storm drains and easements, and utility easements. Exhibit G is the memorandum from the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission. It's a fairly comprehensive memorandum in which they ultimately recommend approval of the subject request to abandon, subject to a condition that if the property ever develops in the future, that the full width of the master plan rights of way be dedicated, but approving the abandonment based on the existing conditions as they are today. Exhibit G is an email I received from Marie Labois with the Fire Department Access and Water Supply Unit at DPS, saying no objections to the requested abandonment.
This is Exhibit H, Eric.
Oh, sorry, H.
No worries.
Exhibit I is an email I received from Pepco advising that they, well, I'll just read it out loud. Good morning. After reviewing this request, Pepco does not agree to give up the easement of right-of-way. As of right now, we have a few poles with primary at the northeast corner of Denton Road and Hampden Lane. Please let me know if you have any further questions. I believe the applicant is going to address the Pepco issues through their presentation. This is Exhibit J is an email I received from Fred Taft at Verizon, letting us know that they did have some aerial facilities, wires attached to the Pepco poles along the existing public utility easement, and just noting that if those utilities had to be relocated, they would assume they would make use of the existing PUE. I don't believe any of the utilities are being relocated as a result of this abandonment request. And I believe that is all the exhibits we have. At this point, I'll turn it over to the applicant and your team to present your case.
Eric, did you want to add the applicant's presentation as another exhibit?
Yes, actually, that'd be helpful. You sent us a PowerPoint presentation, and we should add that as a final exhibit. I guess that would be Exhibit K.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Pat Harris with Lerch, Early and Brewer on behalf of the applicant, the Edgemoor Club. With me are Dorian Hatch, representing Edgemoor Club, and Eric Tidd, civil engineer at Cass Engineering. I'm going to make some introductory remarks, and then we will call both Mr. Patch and Mr. Tidd for testimony. And as with respect to Exhibit K that was just submitted, everything that we submitted on the PowerPoint actually was previously submitted. It's just a compilation in the order that we're going to present it because I thought it'd be easier to present. But no new information is included there. This request is for the abandonment of 2,453 square feet along the Denton Road and Hampden Lane rights of way, abutting the Edgemoor Club. If I could share my screen. So the Edgemoor Club is a just over 2-acre property. It is bounded by, on the south by Hampden Lane, on the west by Exeter Road, on the east by Denton Road, and then on the north by the backyards of back property line of 3 single-family homes that front on Edgemoor Lane. The property is zoned R60, and as Mr. Tidd will testify in more detail, the areas that are subject to this abandonment are at the corner of Hampden Lane and Denton Road. The Edgemoor Club was established in 1920, and this abandonment addresses encroachments of certain existing improvements into the right-of-way. As you will hear, and as Park and Planning actually did a good job in their staff report detailing, it appears that some of these improvements may have dated back to the establishment of the club, which occurred in 1920, and we'll go through that history a little bit further. In connection with maintenance and repairs that were needed to the existing tennis courts, it came to light that some of the existing improvements are encroaching into the right-of-way. And after several meetings with both Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services and Department of Transportation, the attorney for the Department of Transportation recommended that we pursue an abandonment to address this issue. And as the Park and Planning memo made clear, really what this abandonment will do is affirm the status quo. There'll be no change in either visibly or operationally of the conditions that have existed for decades. And for that reason, I believe that's why, except for the one call that Mr. Willis had yesterday, why we're not hearing from any of the neighbors, because there's really no change involved here. So you will hear from our witnesses, and we will demonstrate that the abandonment satisfies the conditions of the county code section 4963C1, in that the abandonment of the right-of-way, we will show that that portion of the right-of-way is not currently needed, and nor is it needed in the foreseeable future for public use. So with that, I will call Mr. Dorian Patch. And Mr. Hearing Examiner, I didn't know whether, do you swear him in? I wasn't clear on the procedures here.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know at the ZHE, the zoning hearing examiner does that. So I wasn't sure whether that was necessary or not. Thank you. Mr. Patch, can you please state your address, name and address for the record?
Sure, Dorian Patchen, and I actually live at 7803 Tilbury Street in Bethesda, Maryland, 20814.
And what is your involvement with the Edgemoor Club?
I am the Vice President of House and Grounds.
And can you please provide just a very brief history of the club in terms of when it was established, and then based on the exhibit on the screen, can you share with the hearing examiner what the current improvements are on the property?
Sure. So we were established in 1920, and what we're doing as far as in maintenance and improvements of our current tennis courts is really just actually improving the actual tennis courts that you see on the screen. We're not increasing or decreasing in any way, shape, or form. We're just improving what you see there. They, and a little background there, the tennis courts haven't been updated in many years, probably since the early 70s. And so all we're doing is updating the tennis courts into more modern facilities.
And are they clay courts?
They are considered clay courts. It's a new version of a clay court. Yes.
Okay. And that requires an irrigation.
It does require irrigation, and actually what we're doing with this maintenance and improvement is actually improving the irrigation.
In connection with Park and Planning staff report, they proposed one condition, and that condition reads as follows: no new structures or new improvements shall be permitted to be constructed within the subject abandonment. This does not preclude maintenance of the existing structures and improvements. Would the club accept this condition as a approval of the abandonment?
Yes.
And then the Department of Transportation presented 4 conditions, and I will read those, and then I want to know whether the club will accept those conditions as well. The first condition is, should the site ever redevelop, the applicant will dedicate to public right-of-way the full width of the street frontages along Denton Road and Hampden Lane per the complete street design guidelines or other applicable roadway design standards acceptable to NCDOT. 2, the storm drain system should be within the right-of-way or a proposed storm drain easement. The storm drain easement should be sized per the design drainage criteria manual. 3, the existing sidewalk is to remain within the right-of-way. And then 4, all existing utilities, if any, along the proposed abandonment portions of Denton Road and Hampden Lane shall remain in place within a proposed public utility easement or relocated at the applicant's expense. If the existing utility is relocated, it should be within the right-of-way or a proposed public utility easement. Are those acceptable to the Edgemoor Club?
They are with the caveat that our current improvements made to the club to continue its use as a swim and tennis club do not constitute redevelopment, because it truly is maintenance.
Thank you. And is there anything else you would like to add?
Not at this time.
So I have no further questions for Mr. Patchen. And then our next witness, if there's no questions, is Mr. Eric Tidd. Mr. Tidd, can you please state your name, profession, and business address for the record?
Sure. My name is Eric Tidd. I'm a professional civil engineer and CAS Engineering, and our address is 10 South Bench Street, Frederick, Maryland, 21701.
And what has been your involvement with the abandonment matter?
We were engaged to prepare a sediment control plan for the tennis court maintenance / repair in connection with preparation of plans. Existing encroachments were discovered, and we surveyed to determine the extent of those encroachments. And my office participated in meetings with DOT and bargain planning and DPS on how to remedy the situation.
And then can you please describe in more detail the encroachments? And I'm going to turn to page 3 of Exhibit K. And if I need to enlarge the screen, please let me know.
Sure. The encroachments include or certainly are limited along portions of the Hampden Lane right-of-way between Exeter Road and Denton Road, and portions of the Denton Road right-of-way between Hampden Lane and Edgemore Lane, totaling approximately 2,453 square feet. Existing improvements include portions of 4 clay tennis courts and perimeter fencing, on-site storm drainage facilities, and wooden retaining walls.
And can you explain where those wooden retaining walls are located?
The largest of the retaining walls exist at the intersection of Hampden Lane and Denton Road. Although there are very small, I would call them landscape walls, as you proceed north on Denton Road. Those landscape walls generally vary from 6 inches to we'll call it 18 inches, and are there for landscape retention.
And you 6 inches to 18 inches high is what you.
Correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And do you have any information regarding the establishment of these encroachments?
Very limited. Based on plat history, the tennis courts may have been in existence at the time of the abandonment. The property was originally platted in 1912 on plat 146. As you can see, the right-of-way arced out into Denton Road and Hampden Lane, and then the club was established, as Mr. Patchen said, in 1920. The property was replatted in 1924 by plat 240 or 284 when there was a reconfiguring of the intersection. The club at the time owned the property but did not sign the plat. So it's assumed that the Edgemore Club or Edgemore, the property was basically, they didn't sign the plat, so it was signed by others. So it's believed that that's the time when the dedication created the encroachments.
Thank you. And in your opinion, is there a present public use for the area of the right-of-way occupied by the encroachments?
No, the existing condition has existed as stated previously without issue for decades. The club and the county were apprised of the encroachments as part of our permit applications for the tennis court maintenance and repair. There's adequate sidewalk length, both Hampden Lane and Denton Street, and the sidewalk is 4 feet wide. Existing sidewalks comparable in width to other sidewalks throughout the neighborhood, at least where sidewalk exists. Many blocks do not have sidewalks. For example, the south side of Hampden Lane, which is on the left side of the screen here shown. And then ultimately the agencies that make the decision regarding the need for public improvements or public space, Department of Transportation and Park and Planning both support the abandonment.
And what is the existing right-of-way of Hampden Lane and Denton?
Both are 50 feet wide, platted at 50 feet wide, and are
And does that meet
considered.
a county requirement?
That does, yes, as they both are classified as secondary residential roads.
Thank you. The DOT condition requires that the storm drain should be within the right of way or a proposed storm drain easement. What is the current situation of the storm drain?
Current storm drain is within the existing public right of way and will be unimpacted by the abandonment.
And then another DOT condition is that the existing sidewalk be within the right of way. Is that condition, is that the current condition?
That is the current condition, and the abandonment will not impact the location of those sidewalks. They will remain in the public right of way.
And then finally, the other DOT condition is, are there any, relates to utilities within the right of way. So the question is, are there any existing utilities within the area to be abandoned?
There is a one overhead pole that serves the club, and that is existing within an existing public utility easement and will remain within that public utility easement. That pole is not intended to be removed or relocated.
And does that public utility easement run the entire length of Denton Road?
Yes, it does, as well as Hampden and ultimately Exeter Road as well.
So just to reiterate, that the existing pole that is within the existing PUA,
Yes, that is correct.
and the abandonment won't change that situation.
That is correct, yes.
And then are you aware of Pepco's response to the abandonment request?
We are, yes.
And Mr. Willis read this, but I'm going to read it one more time. After reviewing this request, Pepco does not agree to give up the easement of right of way. As of right now, we have a few poles with primary at the northeast corner of Denton Road and Hampden Lane. Please let us know if you have any further questions. Thank you. Will the abandonment result in Pepco giving up any easement or any interest in the right of way?
No. Pepco has, as I stated previously and as indicated on the picture, Pepco has one pole located on the property within an existing PUE. Additional poles and overhead lines are located adjacent to the property along Hampden Lane, but are well beyond the limits of the proposed abandonment areas.
And those are shown on, again, sheet 3 of Exhibit K. And I believe you already stated this, but the pole within the PUE will continue to be located within the PUE, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And will not be impacted by the abandonment.
That is correct, yes.
And then Pepco also referenced poles at the northeast corner of Denton Road and Hampden Lane. Can you identify where these poles are located, assuming you know what they're referring to, and indicate any impact that may have?
Sure. Our interpretation of their comments is that the poles that they're discussing are located along the east side of Denton Road, and so they're opposite the club's property. So you can see them on the right. That's, yeah. So that would be the picture. Yes, and then heading to the left off the page. We believe that those are the poles that they're talking about with the primary service. They are on, again, opposite side of the right of way. They will remain unimpacted by the proposed abandonment.
And so the abandonment, and will the abandonment in any way impact these poles?
No,
Okay. And do you have anything else to add?
I do not at this time.
Thank you. That concludes our witnesses' testimony. And our original application was fairly detailed. I believe Park and Planning did an excellent job in their staff report that reiterated and provided additional information. I believe that the information in the record and the testimony supports the finding that the abandonment areas are not currently needed for public use, and nor will they be needed in the foreseeable future for public use. I would ask, and this, I'm picking up on Mr. Patchen's testimony, I think it may be helpful if the hearing examiner could clarify the one condition by DOT that said that if there's any redevelopment, that dedication would need to occur. And I want to make sure that if we have a situation, for instance, where it's either maintenance to an existing structure, or assume for a moment that the bathhouses that are located, you know, in the northwest corner of the property are renovated or redeveloped, that would not trigger an abandonment along Denton Road or Hampden Lane, since it's unrelated. And I'd note that the park and planning condition that says no new structures could be constructed in Denton Road or Hampden Lane, would it protects any situation or any potential for ambiguity in that request. But I think it would be helpful to just clarify that the condition for full out dedication would occur in connection with redevelopment, not continued use of the existing club or maintenance of the existing facilities. And with that, we complete our case and are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Regarding the comment you made about the MCDOT comment, again, I'll have to go back and confirm with them, but based on what I read, I'm understanding that it's redevelopment of the entire site were to happen. But again, we would have to reconsider. I'll go back to the design team and reconfirm that comment. And if there are any changes to that, we'll make that known. So I don't, do we have anybody that has signed up to speak, or anybody else that is here to provide comment?
Well, Mr. Tamana, I would say that there was, on the registration form for the hearing, there was an additional person who had signed up to attend the hearing. I sent that person an invite, the link inviting her to the hearing today. I do not see that she has joined. I know Ms. McRae has been checking the waiting room to see if anyone else is joining. So I'm assuming that she elected not to participate. So with that, we don't have anybody else. Okay,
and just as a reminder, you know, the public comment period is, written comment period is still open, and we'll be accepting comments until December 22nd, 2021 at 5 p.m. So if there's no other comments at this time, we can conclude the public hearing. And
so the record will officially close on December 22nd, correct?
December 22nd at 5 p.m. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.